No, we're asking. You know what it is. We don't know what it is.
Are those well, there's, you know what, I don't think there's some things that I'm in that are, for like ID, businesses, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Put that big short on the strips and see if anybody,
Something else. She came up with mine.
Yeah. I don't know. Interesting.
All right, now
we're making history here.
You're zooming?
Yeah.
No, like the president.
It's a coup.
All right, guys, we're ready to start this meeting. We'll do the pledge to the flag.
Run around. Are you ready? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wanted to do one quick thing that's right here by the door. A lot of people don't know what it is. It is a rose, and it is also has when you have a ceremony, you have an empty plate. The plate's turned upside down, the wine glass is turned upside down, and it's really for those veterans that are no longer with us. And they always keep that here. I think that's pretty interesting. And then they put the wheelchair for those that are still with us, but are still injured from times past of serving their nation. So if you get a chance to take a look at it, it is a very neat tradition that the Army's had for a long time. Okay, go.
Eric's going to lead us in prayer now.
If you would please bow your head. Dear gracious God, we are thankful for this time together. Help us to learn from each other and be mindful of our history. Help us to learn and give those around us insight into understanding the importance of preserving and remembering those things that are worth remembering. Dear God, especially this week, we remember the Easter celebration. Help us to be in that mindset of renewal and grace, forgiveness. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. For those that are new, I am Noah Smothers. I'm the president of this group as of present. We started last April to try to get this historical society going again. It kind of failed back in 2016, and so at that point it kind of went away. I guess you might say that, but anyhow, we come up with the idea of starting a new one, starting it over, and get going again. So me and David Schubert and his wife Teresa worked on it quite a bit last April, and we have got to the point where we have now been recognized by the state of Missouri. So we're getting to the point where we will collect dues and we will collect donations in a few months. We're still not doing that at present. I have David. David is our vice president. He can introduce himself there.
I'm Dave Schubert, and like my aviator friend knows over there, we spent a long time in the military. But during the last part after I got hurt, I got to teach history for the Army, which was a blessing because I got to go to every battlefield there was. And I talked from congressmen to generals, and we just went all over. It was like, put that pig in the muddy water, let him roll around. And I had a blast. And besides that, I got to work with a lot of great museums and go overseas and see some phenomenal museums over there. And then come back and share that knowledge of how to protect and preserve the artifacts that we have here in the United States. And so with that knowledge, that's what I feel like I'm tasked with. Okay. And we got
Debbie Blades is our secretary. She also metal detects, like a bunch of us do. That's kind of how we got started into doing this too, is because we go out and we metal detect out in the county, and we're also researching history. Debbie is from Georgia, I think, originally, and she actually found a ring down there a few years ago that was dated in the 600.
Ming Dynasty.
Yeah, in the Ming Dynasty. So she's had it wrote up in an article. It's quite interesting because nobody knows how it got there. And she had found it and kept it for several years before, 40-some years before she finally found somebody that knew exactly what it was. So who knows how it ever got here to Georgia and being that old. This is our treasurer, Teresa Schubert. She is David's wife.
hope.
She actually comes down here from Kirksville, Missouri. If anybody's familiar with Kirksville, that area, that's where she was born and raised up there, and they kicked her out and sent her down to us. So that's a little bit of history on our organization here. When we first started this, we found out that the original officers were still in town, but they had, after contacting them, they had decided they would no longer was interested in the Historical Society. So we are starting brand new officers, brand new members. Everything we're doing is just like we started today. We have no donations at this point.
No dues.
No donations, no dues. We're not collecting money.
We're just having fun learning about history.
And you guys are all free tonight.
We are still looking for a place to put this society. We had a good lead this week. One of the, I don't know, is Karen here tonight? No?
Yeah, she's here somewhere.
Way in the back.
Karen had actually suggested at our last meeting, we talked to Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith owns Cackle Hatchery up here in town. Probably a lot of you know Jeff or know of their hatchery. It's been here, 70-some years. And that's been here almost as long as Charlene has. But Jeff gave us a lead on a building on Commercial Street. He says right now they're really busy. They don't have much free time, but later this fall, it may be something we'll be able to look at. And it would be an ideal location right up on Commercial Street. And that's where we would like to be. So we have been discussing looking for a place to store things once we start collecting donations and once we can set up some displays. We've been to a lot of organizations in town. We still got a few that we haven't been able to get to yet, but we will make the rounds. We will get there. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the newspaper. The newspaper published this book. Some of you might be familiar with it. I think back in the 80s, I believe it was.
90s.
90s, 80s. They actually published two of them. There's the black book, this one, and there's also a green book. Next year, Lebanon and Laclede County turns 175 years ago, old. So we're gonna go talk to the newspaper tomorrow and see if there's some way we can get these published again for the 175th anniversary. So that's on the agenda to do tomorrow. Most of you know Kirk's Pierce. Kirk was the one that initiated most of these pictures in these books, and he still works for the library. So he's been there.
Newspaper.
Newspaper, yes, 52 years, I think. We'll go ahead and have Debbie read our minutes from the March 14th meeting that we had.
Meeting was March 14th. The location was VFW Lodge. There were 24 in attendance. Meeting called to order at 5:30. Meeting was opened with the Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer. Paw bread was offered and was delicious. A short discussion about pawpaws ensued. Noah opened the meeting by stating the fact that we want to incorporate the entire county, not just the Lebanon area. He mentioned that next year, Lebanon will turn 175 years old. Noah and David met with Sheriff Millsap regarding loaning historical items related to the old jail to be displayed in the new 911 center. Anyone with any such items is encouraged to loan them. Noah mentioned that the paperwork for making the Historical Society official has been submitted, but as of yet, we have not received anything back. The minutes of the February meeting were read. Noah pointed out that since there is no money yet, there's also no treasurer's report to read. Greg Darrow visited the Camden County Historical Society's museum and spoke with them at length and gained a lot of valuable information on how they were established. They informed him that it was 20 years before they were able to obtain a building to put all the items. David read a list of events and programs that Camden County puts on as fundraisers, such as Victorian balls, ice cream socials, history in the park, etc. David mentioned that June 10th, there is a plan to travel as a group to Wilson's Creek Battlefield to take a tour, and David will be our tour guide, and he has put together a list of Civil War soldiers, and some will be able to be that character. There was a short discussion of putting together an events calendar. There needs to be a meeting to come up with dates for the various functions. It was mentioned that we need to get the names of vendors of lost arts that can participate in some of the events. Noah showed a book that has all of the Laclede County Civil War participants listed. David discussed his passion for flags, in particular the Civil War flag that is on display in the library and the poor condition that it is in. It was mentioned that Charlene Hopkins, who put together the Jess Easley book and is 95 years of age, may attend the meeting and possibly do a presentation. This evening, our guest speaker was Eric Tudor. He is a Lebanon native and a Harold Bellwright expert. He spoke from 6:20 until 7:10 regarding Harold Bellwright and his connection to Lebanon. It was a very interesting presentation. It was mentioned that we need a speaker for next month if anyone knows of someone. The meeting was adjourned at 7:30.
We do have a treasurer, but as of tonight, we still are not collecting money, but we are officially recognized by the state of Missouri.
Yeah. That took a long time.
That clap is for you.
We have our employee identification number. Our next step will be approval for the 501c3 as a nonprofit. When I filled that out about 3 weeks ago, the state or the federal government says they are getting 95,000 applications a month for nonprofits.
Nobody likes to pay taxes.
They have no idea when we will hear from them. They said we'll get a letter in the mail. That's all they could tell me. So every day I go to the mailbox looking, but so far nothing.
So what does that allow us to do?
This does allow us as an organization, we could open up a bank account, we could collect money, we could do everything like that, except if somebody wanted to give us a large donation, it would not be tax-free.
Oh, okay.
It would be that they could take off their taxes. So we've been informed until we do get that, not to collect any donations, not to collect any money. So we're just waiting now on the federal government. Hopefully it won't take too long, but like I said, with 95,000 applications, I don't know how many government officials actually look at those. Even if they got several hundred, it's still gonna take a long time to go through all of them.
We have 87,000 IRS agents.
That's what I was thinking too. 80-some thousand IRS.
Yeah, you know they're not working at the 15th, right?
Yeah. They're not doing that. Except looking at your taxes.
Gene, there is a loophole around that. What you can do is you can go to LAF, and they can receive money on your behalf, tax-free, so that people can get their credit while you're waiting on yours. Now, they would charge you 1%. That's, you know, if someone's gonna offer you $100,000, big deal. You know? No. I'm a married man, I'm sorry. I don't have any money.
What's LA?
Lebanon Area Foundation.
That's Melinda, right?
Yes.
We talked to Melinda today. Yeah, and she's told us sort of the same thing, but then she said, you know, if somebody gives you, if you could take money as a startup, but it'd have to be cash. And then later on, after you got the 501c3 then we come back and redo the books. She said, you know, you could do either way, but I would suggest don't collect any money yet unless you want a big headache later. So we thought about that all day long, and we wanted you to tell us if we were going to have a big headache one way or the other.
It is, I think, though, we basically got everything in order now. It's just a matter of getting that last piece of paperwork and finding the place, asking people for donations, asking people for money. And tonight, I have made up a membership form that I just made up. I was going to pass one around. I think I got one for everybody, but of an idea. When I signed up for the Old Historical Society, they had a slip of paper. They asked your name and your address, and that was it. But the society really consists of more than that. For one thing, we have to think about when we accept donations, do we want every donation we get, which is a big no. And I say that because we're only going to have so much space to display things. So if somebody came in with 20 World War I Army helmets, we only need one. We don't need 20. And I'm sure there's going to be people that will be upset, but we're going to have to set up some rules and abide by them. So our first step will be to get our bylaws in order and publish that. So we'll be working on them probably at the next meeting. I did, but in the meantime, we kind of asked around to all the other societies around in the neighboring counties, what they charge for membership and things like that. So we kind of got an idea of what everybody else does. We don't want to be a whole lot different. But I'll give each one of you this so you can kind of look at it. That's that bit. Debbie?
That's the membership dues on there?
This is our ideas.
Thanks.
And a lot of the dues and stuff will go to everything from awards that we want to give out to recognize individuals, to business cards, to paperwork. I mean, artwork, we looked at doing something like this for awards, maybe putting that on there, but we got our cards today. We're Noah and I are sucking that down right there from ourselves. In the future, hopefully, we won't have to buy all this, but again, we might get repaid for that. But really, the money that is focused that we get from memberships and corporate memberships, again, comes down to preserving, protecting artifacts from the county and promoting them, just like these books. Because these books were in 85, 86, they told us they were about $20 a piece. I'm sure if we go to a printer today, it won't be even close to that. So we'll have to see where we can get this. But that's where the money's going to go for your membership dues, not only for us, but also for sales to promote the history of the county.
For one thing, the original Historical Society and the Genealogical Society has already published lots of books. There is books that's available. The problem is, probably none of you, maybe a couple, might know where to go find one, but they're just not really available to the public. We want to get that to where we work with both societies. We want to work with, Charlene's going to get up and speak in a minute. She has written many of these books. Betsy Scobie right there has worked on many of them. But we'd like to get it to where if Dan back there wanted to know something, he could come and look at a list and say, well, I'd like to know about this out here in my area. He lives out west or east of town there. David lives clear down to Falcon. He's almost into Texas County. So. But I found an old Historical Society book that Don has under his hands. It's a cookbook. It's all recipes that women had donated years ago. I don't even see a date in it. I don't know when it was made. But it's
Prior
all,
to 90.
And who put that one out, do you know?
Historical Society.
Historical Society. So that's something else that we might want to reprint for the anniversary next year.
but also when you look in there, some of them people are no longer with us.
Sure, yeah.
They're not here.
They ate that food.
If you need some new recipes, I got a one spam surprise.
Damn surprise. I got one for hard day.
But it's interesting. Here's one that was printed in 1949. This is that's the year I was born. And it's a lot of history that was written in here. I think the Genealogical Society does republish this one. I think you can buy that through them. I've made some lists of the books over here on the table. You're welcome to take them home with you, but it tells each one who has the books. The Friends of the Library has some that they have. The Genealogical Society has some. But it gives a list of each organization and what books they have available. But I think this one's the Genealogical Society.
Is there anybody from the genealogy?
Next, speak on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
When the old Genealogical Society decided they did not want to publish books anymore, I had them turn over all publication rights to Friends of the Library.
Oh, that-
And I did that simply because I was in it and I knew who would have it and where it's at.
Okay.
So technically, the Friends have publication rights on all these books.
Only historical books.
Only the historical
Historical
books, not the
Society.
not
Not the genealogy.
Yeah.
Only the historical society.
Maybe we need to set up a
Get
meeting. and see what-
organized and I'll
Yeah.
talk to you about giving it back to you.
Okay.
Or
Or you guys take some and get them reprint, we get some reprint.
we've got a bunch of them printed.
Good.
And I've got all the masters maintained at the library.
We probably just need to sit down and do a meeting and say, this is what we want to do for the 150 or 175. And if you guys want to do something, we'll do that.
Well, the Friends have no interest in publications. We
Okay.
didn't care about the money. What we cared about was these things were gonna disappear.
It'll be
And,
thrown
you
in
know,
the fire.
just be thrown away and just nobody wanted them. And so that's why Betsy and I sit down and talk to them and said, well, let's do this, you know, and work it this way.
Charlene and myself and a couple of other people, we spent probably, 3 years working on reading cemeteries.
Right.
They'd ever one be in a burn pile, and him and I couldn't see it, because, well, each of us spent a lot of money on gas, paper, bug spray.
Yeah. Well, you're right, because we don't want lost history. We want to promote it. And if we can come to an agreement and we can support each other, that'd be great, because I think for the 175th anniversary, then if we can get some of those out there, so it's not lost anymore, and it's out there in everybody's, people, I know you want one of these, don't you? Yes, she's
I've
like,
been trying to go to the Genealogical Society to get one, but they're closed every time I go.
every time you go, so.
They're open every Thursday afternoon.
I've been there and the door's locked.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So some of these things, we'll work with the the genealogy, and work with the friends, and if we can get them promoted, we'll have them here for you guys to get, because I know, I don't know how many people have drooled over these, because the photographs are so great.
Very good.
They're almost an Adam's quality. Those guys do.
Thank you.
I think the green book, the
Agreement, yes.
Gleason book, Francis Gleason book, the ones that the Genealogical Society has put together, I think are indexed. This one is not indexed. I don't think they knew what it was.
That's
Gee,
good.
there is what I'd like to do down the road is take all the masters and put them on hard drive. Put them on thumb drives that we've got,
Yeah.
where when we need them, we can go in and say, hey, print this off. Yeah, that's gonna be a project. There's a good. There's a
There's an expense.
When you
And how
say
much
a
you gonna
master, are there graphics or images that are printed in photographic prints, or are these just photocopies?
Photocopy.
Okay, so it's not maybe at the quality of what you would see in that blue black book there.
No.
That was in the newspaper.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. No,
But I was
it's
just
not gonna be
wondering
that
if there was any images that were photographs. That makes a difference.
I think
It's
some
in
of
the
those,
40s.
some of those bets, there are original photographs, aren't there?
Because if it was digitized, if it was the master, I mean, obviously when you're making photocopies, it turns to gray and whatnot.
Right.
But if you can photograph them and scan them, the quality's there.
I don't think so. This was,
It's all
we're
right.
talking about, in the early 90s.
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah.
I was just right out of high school.
Thank you for thinking ahead and keeping all that together.
Make sure everybody here's got the correct email address.
All right, let's do that
I'm
next.
gonna pass this around. This is a list of all the people that I have that has came to our meetings. I just want everybody to check, if you've been here before, check your email address, make sure it's correct. I'm not sure everybody's getting the emails that I send out. I know some of them replied and said they did get it, but, I think there may be some that I may just have wrote down wrong.
Should I pass that in around with him?
Yes.
Well, she's prepared.
While that's going around, I don't know if you guys noticed or know about this. Wounded Warriors. Teresa and I have participated in this for several years. You'll see the flyers throughout town. It's a great event. They do a wagon train through town, but they also go down by the fairgrounds and they set up all these chuck wagons and they cook some great food down there. You pay one price and then you go to chuck wagon to chuck wagon. You get beans over here, but you get brisket over here. And so if you've never done it, it really does help the Wounded Warriors. And we sort of set up there as doctors from the 1850s and 1860s. So after your stomach is so swollen and you feel really bad off, you come see us, we'll operate on it and take care of it.
No, go to David. What date is it?
It is May the, let's see,
Just come to me and I'll give you some
May the 26th.
peppermint tea.
Memorial Weekend.
Memorial Day weekend, yes. May the 26th. There's a small one over there. You can also look at this one here too.
My comment, when you get there, don't dally getting the food lines.
Yes.
Because food lines can be long and food is outstanding, but it does go quick.
It does go quick.
There's no seconds either, is there, John?
Not unless you run from one place to another.
No, yeah.
It is, it's quite interesting to go out there and just walk around. And this started out small, like we are right here. We're starting out pretty small, but over the years, it's pretty big. I mean, it's probably,
There's wagons coming in from all over the states.
Yeah,
They come
always
in.
from Texas.
Texas, Nevada, where do we go? There's a lot of wagons. 30, 35 wagons. Stuff like that.
I'd like to ask who liked the pawpaw bread last week.
Yeah, that
That
was
was
really good.
delicious.
That was
Those people
excellent.
didn't even know what the
Thank
hog
you.
was.
Nice.
So probably next, this fall, we might have another pawpaw meeting. We're gonna talk about our trip.
Okay, I can do that real
Do that
quick.
first, or?
I can do that first.
I think we had.
On the 10th of June, we're all going to meet down at Wilson's Creek at, what did we say, 9:30? I think so. Wilson's Creek was a battle that happened here in one of the first battles, 2 weeks after the first battle of the Civil War, which was Manassas. It happened right here in Missouri, mainly because of what was going on in Missouri. That federal troops were now being stationed and pushing the duly elected governor of the state, along with his Missouri State Guard guys, out of Jeff City. Why they just didn't sit there in Jeff City with shotguns on the tables, I don't know, but they left overnight and did that. So we'll go down there on the 10th of June. That what I've organized with the park is they're going to have a cannon fire demonstration, and then they're also going to have the Germans. Most people don't know that the German population of Missouri was very high, but they were all focused on fighting for the Union, and they're going to give us a demonstration on drill and load fire down there. So that will be on the 10th. The rest of the time, I will take you around to the different sites there at Wilson's Creek, but we're going to go to the museum first. The museum, Noah and I went in there with our wives 2 weeks ago. I've been to every national park there has been that has anything to do with the American Civil War. What they've done, they bought Dr. Sweeney's collection for $1.4 million and have now housed it into the Wilson's Creek Battlefield Park. They've expanded it. It is as well done. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Chickamauga, Georgia, which has the Fuller collection there, the largest military collection owned by the park. It's phenomenal. This is about half the size of it, but it is very well done. It has a good sand table or a battlefield map in it. It also has a decent movie, depending on what side you're on. But it's well done. We'll go see that. We'll go on the battlefield. We'll go to different stops. Next month, I will do a program. Somehow we'll get our video working, and I will give you what I call the preamble to war, and it will show us how step by step how do we get to Wilson's Creek. Then you guys will take some of my books over here, or you'll go on the internet and you can download the books from the Command and General Staff College, and you can research whatever general you want to be. And while we're on the battlefield, even though I've studied enough, I'm going to let General Lyon be here. I'm going to say, "How did you die, General Lyon?" And he's going, "I was on my horse and somebody shot me." And I'm going, "Okay, well, that's not all we need to know. Tell us a little bit about yourself, General Lyon." "Well, I used to beat people with the back of my sword, and I used to foam at the mouth when I talked about abolitions." And so we'll learn a little bit about that. Then we'll go over here to Mr. Adams, and we'll say, "Okay, General Price, what are you doing right now?" I don't know, because I got 15,000 guys and they're all running around and none of them are drilling and they're all trying to eat blackberries and I'm trying to get them ready for battle. So we'll go through those discussions at each one of the stops. I think it'll be a good day, depends on how the weather is. But after this is over with, if you'd like to come with me over here, I'll point you out in the right direction on where you need to go study. And I'll know that you want to go. I'll pass you out some of the books. I'm sorry to say the government's really tight, so I can give it to you to study, but I got to take it back. So that's a terrible part, but I'll point you in the right direction. If you have, and if you have any family or friends and you've got to be General Siegel, okay, and you want to run away, okay, I will try to get you into that slot and I will make sure you get to the right place. And I'll put you at the exact spot that you say, run away, run away. Okay, we'll do that. He doesn't say run away, he says retreat. But it's the same thing. That was just a mighty python thing. All right, so we'll have fun down there. You'll have to take your own lunch, take your own water. There'll be no park fee. There's no fee for any of this because this is member appreciation. So you guys that want to go, drive down there, we'll go down there. And the only thing I would say besides bringing water and your own food, bug spray. Because these sugar and ticks that jump out of the trees down there are airborne troopers, and they will land on your collar and then they will bite you and you'll be like my wife, who can't eat beef or pork. Chicken because she's got alpha. So she can't go on any more staff rides with me. Yeah, she goes anyway. And she also eats beef and pork. And she's sick for that. So talk to me after that. After our presentation, we'll go over here and we'll go and see if you're really serious about being General Siegel, General Jackson, all these other guys out there, and you want to do a little research. The book is not very big. It's and we only stop at certain place where these guys get to talk. So General Siegel says retreat. We'll go to that stop. We go to General Price, says, they're out there eating blackberries. I don't know where my army's at. And we'll go up to the artillery guys like Cotton's Battery, and he's like, my name is Bottlenose Totten. And the reason my name is Bottlenose is because I'm sprinting right now at the battlefield because this is a scary place to be. And so we'll go through each one of those, and we'll have a good day after that. We should be done around 4, later at 5, if you guys really want to get into it. So it's up to you.
If we want to just be a blackberry eater, that's good.
She's like half the students I ever had anyway. Okay, that's all I got.
What's interesting though is Eric is a member of the Lebanon Photograph.
Yeah, the Lebanon Camera Club. We don't meet as often as we used to, but there's still quite a few of us out there, and I'm encouraging any photographers that can help document this event to please attend.
I was also contacted by a guy that's he's retired from the military, but he has a bunch of soldiers that want to come from Fort Leonard Wood and go with us.
Wow.
I told him, the problem with that is David says he can only handle 25 blackberry eaters.
It's really the cars. The cars, having too many cars, you can't stop along the side of the road, and it makes a real problem for that. So we've got a 15-passenger van, and then if anybody else has got any other large dualies or 250 Super Duties or something like that we can throw in there, we appreciate it, and we'll meet in the parking lot, and then we'll gather in what we can get. So, Greg, can you bring your bus? Can you bring your bus?
It's out of commission.
Oh, out of commission. So we're looking for anybody that day to help us out. So we don't.
Yeah.
So we're just looking for helping out the park as we're down.
You're welcome.
What we're trying to do is get enough interest into what we're doing so we can get more people involved. So by making this trip, a lot of people really don't realize, but there was a lot of Civil War activity went right through our town, right? Came right up through the old town here.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice out here by Heritage Baptist Church, they've got part of the street dug up right now. That was part of the old wire road. That's one that the soldiers traveled down. It'll soon be paved over, all of it, and once it's done, but that is part of the original wire road right there that went through town. I asked them about metal detecting it, but they told me they have several guys in the church that do metal detecting, so they're gonna try it first.
Okay.
If they don't find anything, they're gonna call us, so that's the way
Just been pulling batteries out of
Are you the church there? I might be able to,
it. There you go.
But tonight at this time, I think we're gonna have Charlene Hopkins is sitting right here on the front row, come up and talk to us. She,
Do I have to stand up?
No, you can sit in that little seat right there if you want to. Just turn it around.
I'll just turn around and yell.
Charlene, you want, I could move your chair up there.
Huh,
I could move your chair right there so you'd be facing everything.
okay.
Okay.
for those that don't know Charlene just turned 95 just a few weeks ago.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
I'm just so proud
Mhm.
that
You
I
should be.
reached that age. But I'll be sitting with my back to you guys.
That's all right. We'll listen.
We saw you earlier.
When I asked
Gene
her to
asked
come and
me
speak,
if I would talk. I said, what do you want me to talk about? He said, anything you want to. But these three people right here know that once I get started, it's hard to shut me off. But this is my brother, Don Davis, and his wife, Carolyn. Don and I came from a family of 10. And you would think that someplace in there, somebody would be just alike. And Don and I are, although there's 11 years difference in our ages. But when I'll go with him anywhere on his excursions, except one place, and that is a cave. I will not get down on my stomach and crawl in a hole in the ground. But any place else, we like the same things. I went to Oklahoma when he was living there, and they shut the dam off west of Tulsa. So the Arkansas River had no water in it. And we walked down the Arkansas River looking for artifacts. He was looking for buffalo heads, and I was looking for just anything. But as I said, we go along, but when I came to Lebanon anyway, several years ago, I don't even remember how many. It's been over 65 years. I was really interested in this little community that my husband and I moved to, and it was called Brush Creek Station. And I started asking questions. And of course, everybody was real helpful. But then after I wrote the book and explained about Brush Creek and the fact that all of Little Brush Creek Station, if y'all don't know where it's at, it's about 4 miles southwest, just off of I-44, and we have to get on old Route 66, and we're 1 mile north. And excuse me. It was so interesting, and there was a lady out there that was a correspondent for the Lebanon paper, and her name was Edith Moy. And I really got interested when she told me about the train wreck between Lebanon and Brush Creek Station, and that she remembered it plainly. And she told me where it was. And when they described where it was, I question it when they tell it in the paper, because I don't know, I came from Nebraska, and you people in Missouri don't measure distance like I do, apparently, because she said it was just outside of Brush Creek at the S curve. And the S curve is more than 2 miles from Lebanon. But I didn't tell Donnie or Jean that I was going to throw all this other stuff in here. But after I got interested and wrote a book of Brush Creek Station, then I got interested in the Historical Society and met a lot of people, and I see a lot of new faces. Either that or everybody get old and I don't recognize you. That don't include you guys. But after I joined the Historical Society, then there were 3 of us that decided that the cemeteries in Laclede County need to be updated. And our dear friend Connie Morgan, whom we lost a few years ago, and Betsy, myself, and later on Judith Cunningham walked every one of these cemeteries in Laclede County. And we went through. Actually, Betsy's the only one that ever even saw a snake skin. The rest of us never saw a snake, but we got covered with ticks. And but it was all so interesting for me that I just kept going. I did the book of sheriffs from the past, and we missed one in there. Never could find him, but now Sheriff Millsap and Donnie Rafe have found not where he's buried. We don't know where he's buried. But there's an awful lot of people that migrated to Missouri that don't have any idea where their family is buried. And some of them, because a landowner decided he needed that little spot to plant corn or something, and that don't work. But anyway, my husband was born in Phillipsburg, and but we live at Brush Creek Station now, and I thought, what happened to these people that migrated from the South? And they're all here. All of them weren't wealthy, probably very few of them. And the first thing you know, they got old, they couldn't work, they didn't really own their property. So what were they going to do? So it took several years before, in fact, 1871, the courts appointed a fella out north of town to start what he called a poorhouse, or
Poor farm.
help me.
Poor farm.
Is that what he called it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know there was no place to send people who had lost their mind or that lost all their family. What were they going to do with them? So the court appointed Irvin Ellis to open up his home and house the indigent people. He was at this for several years. They appointed a fella to buy 320 acres, and they were going to raise crops on it, but they thought the poor people that had no place to go could farm for them and that they could, raise corn or whatever. But that didn't last too long. So there were several different men who were caretakers. And right now I can't think of the what they called the farm out there after their biggest cost, I think they said at the time, was digging a grave. It cost $5. There was a gentleman that was going to dig their graves for them, but he charged $6, but they only paid him $5. So anyway, they just had to close it down. And then we had a fellow that came that started the town of Phillipsburg. And then when the railroad came through, his little town kind of fell apart because he didn't have enough he was too far away from the tracks and he wanted to be right on the railroad track. And so they started an almshouse, a poor farm for the people that had no place to go. And wasn't too long before a reporter from St. Louis came down and opened up a bunch of eyes because he said they, I guess, did some research on all the other places and the poor farms in the state. And the one at Phillipsburg was the most rundown, dilapidated. They lived in little cabins outside the home. They didn't live in the home. They lived in cabins, and they had steps up to a window. They were fed twice a day, and the people would have a metal bowl, they called it. They had to walk from their cabin up to the main house, walk up these steps and hand their bowl to the lady the lady of the house, and she'd fill their bowl up and they'd take it back to their room, whether it was snowing, raining, or whatever. And they'd take it back and eat it. They had very little heat in the wintertime. And I know one of the articles that this reporter had written about was a lady and her daughter were in an attic room with no heat, no way to provide any heat whatsoever for these people. It stayed there for several years. And 1935 was when they closed it. I've got some pictures and I'll pass these around so you can see some of what it looked like. Not very long ago, I knew the people that bought the buildings, Paul and Nadine Vandeveer, and they made a beautiful place out of it. They redid all the buildings that had, they were log, and they put new chinking in, and they kept one for their house guests. And when they'd have company, they got to sleep in one of the cabins that was actually from the poor farm. And the reason it closed was because the people of Laclede County wouldn't pass a bill so they could have enough money. And they've got what they call a potter's field inside the city limits. And that's where most of them are buried. I got a call from a fella in California whose great-great-grandfather was in the Civil War. He is buried. He had to go live at the old poor farm. This man is going to be spending an awful lot of money because he wants his great-great-grandfather exhumed and taken to White Oak Pond to be buried. And I don't think, I can't imagine, I think I counted 37 rocks that they call the Potter's Field in the cemetery at Phillipsburg. And if that guy wants to spend much money they are not marked. He wants a DNA done apparently to everybody up there. I feel sorry for the guy. He's got more money than
Praise
he's got
him if he
brains.
does. We can identify the people.
That's all
Maybe, yeah.
I can say. I feel sorry for him. Yes.
My grandmother took me several years ago to her original hometown, a little place called Laclede, about the size of Phillipsburg, probably, give or take. And when she took me down there about 1980.
Would somebody translate for me because I can't hear her?
Oh.
I got halfway to Lebanon and forgot my hearing aid.
You have my sympathy, I know, well, how that goes.
Talk loud.
My grandmother, when she was about, in 1985, she was about 75 years old, she took me to her hometown of Laclede, about the size of Phillipsburg, about 60 miles south of St. Louis. And she took me to the old cemetery, which was like a lot of these family cemeteries around here, marked off with like barbed wire, nothing fancy. And over in the corner were two huge rocks. Nothing fancy, just rocks, two of them. And she told me, and it was right there in the book, it was in the little old church, that is where my great-grandparents were buried, because they died in the 30s, and of course nobody had any money for stones. So, and they were just right there in the corner. She showed me there was her father, there was her mother. Like, okay, fine.
Have they removed the stone?
A few years later, I took my daughter, about 15 years later, I took my daughter and her sons back down there. My grandmother had passed, to show them. I didn't even recognize the cemetery because here was a big arch with the letters in metal. There was a fancy fence around it with these big stone posts. And some feller had discovered, like you said, his grandparents were buried there or whatever. He spent $1 million to upgrade the cemetery. The grounds were manicured, perfect green grass, everything. And you were just like, whoa. Over there in the corner, where they had put one of these fancy stone posts, those two rocks were gone.
Oh.
I told my grandsons, that's where your great-great-grandparents were buried, but I'm sure when they were putting in these stone posts, they had to use some kind of machinery, and they just looked at that and said, well, there's two old rocks, get them out. So, there you go.
Were you able to locate that spot?
I knew exactly where it was because of the corner and so forth, but I told them, here's where they were in this corner.
Well, there was a young fella contacted me yesterday he is writing a book of Brush Creek,
Oh, wow.
Phillipsburg, wrong town. And he said he might be here tonight. I don't recognize him. I haven't seen him in years. Terry Wood. And he, I'm sure, would love to hear your story. Before I leave, I'd like to get your phone number or address or something so I can send him to talk to you. I know he'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
And the Vandeveers no longer live in this property that they bought, and I have no idea who lives there now. I don't have any idea. And
I know who lives there.
but
I can think of their name. I'll tell you their name.
Bonnie,
What? No, I'm Betty.
Betty
Yeah.
Morse.
But my farmer joins that property where the Van Beers lived. And, I got their name here. I'll tell you later.
Can you give me an idea of where in Phillipsburg?
Eric, I can't hear you.
Can you give me an idea where in Phillipsburg this poor farm was at? Like on the, right off the railroad tracks
Okay.
near the pond?
You gotta go across the railroad track
Mm-hmm.
and
First left.
turn right, go past the old mill.
Yep,
Okay, and after you turn right, it'll be the first road to the left.
yep.
Barrel.
Uh,
Barrel Road.
Oh,
Barrel
Okay.
Road.
And then to your left off of it.
What's interesting is the man that she's talking about, I seen on Facebook, he was asking questions, and I had sent that to Charlene because I didn't have a clue, but this is something recent. I mean, that just happened in the last week or a couple of weeks, and this guy that was asking about the cemetery in Phillipsburg, you know,
when I
about
first moved here,
finding his second great grandfather and all that, so.
I lived right.
So that's
here when
an
I first
important
moved
part of history.
to Lebanon. That house burned down.
If we didn't have that, then that young man
Lots of
would
fond
probably
memories of
never
my
know. He would never know the story of what happened to his second. great
Probably
grandfather.
all of you that are local knew Chester Wood that had the tire shop. Well, this is his younger brother. And because he came from up that area, in fact, his mother lived in Phillipsburg a while.
Terry is a steel guitar player and good.
And
The people's name are
So-
Jack and Trudy Carlson.
if you want to pass that
Oh, wonderful.
around,
Thank you.
Eric.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And Trudy Carlson.
Yeah, I have their phone number, but they don't know anything about it. They just bought the property from the Vandeveers, but they are the ones who live there now.
The Vandeveers are alive and well in Lebanon, Missouri. Yeah, they're always at the Friends book sales, and, you know, yeah, Paul and he would probably love to come and talk about it. He built a whole little western town out there. He had a jail, had a saloon, had, you know, it was quite a to go and see.
They, a post office.
A post office.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Could we return to the original Poor Farmers, ma'am?
Sorry.
Charlie.
I'm
Could
sorry.
we return to the subject of the original Poor Farm? You said it was out on the north side of Lebanon, is that correct?
I don't think she's here.
Where was the original Poor Farm? Was it out north of Lebanon?
No.
Yes, it was out North 5, but to the east of North 5.
Approximately where the state has a highway barn now. That's the approximate location.
Okay.
So out there by Eldridge then?
I can't remember what the name of the place was.
Before you get to Elbridge, I believe. You know, but there is, goes up, and there's a rise right there, and there's a, state highway bar up there. And it's right, that's where the original Fort Farm was.
Are you sure it's state highway? The city phone kind of place, right there, what you're talking about, this looks like. And it'll be here.
The metal building, I believe it was the state highway.
It used to be low rise building.
I'm sorry.
After I started thinking about this the other night, after I went to bed, couldn't sleep, I thought, what on earth did old people do when they came up from North Carolina and everywhere, and they had no family here,
Sure.
and they didn't homestead anything. I guess that's called what they call squatters' rights or something.
Sure.
And what did they do? Where did they go?
But then times were tough, just like we have today. Times get tough and then everything, you know.
Down there to go out.
Does anyone know how the original farm was funded? Who paid for it?
She's asking, does anyone know how the original poor farm was paid for? How did they fund it?
County.
The county paid for it. How many people were actually housed there over time?
When that book gets down there, so you can see on the second page, I think it tells of the history, actual history of it. But the county had to,
So when did
they
the one on the north side
gave
close?
the landowner the 320 acres. They put this fella on there and with a house, and they gave him $1 a person. And I think at one time there was probably about 9 people in their home. And I'm assuming the county paid for that.
So that was the maximum number at any time, of just 9 people?
Teresa.
She's asking if the maximum amount of people at any one time was 9 people.
I don't think there was many more than that. At the first one. Now
So
in
when did
Phillipsburg, there
when did it
were,
close?
She wants to know when the first one closed.
No, that was the last.
18,
It started in 1871, and I was thinking before 1900? Or
Well,
just after
the first
1900?
one ended in 18. It's in the book, I
It's in
don't
the
know,
book.
it's in my notes.
And then the one at Phillipsburg ended in 1935.
Yeah, the one at Phillipsburg.
You got it in
So the first one did close before the turn of the century. The second one opens up and it closes at 35.
The first one was started in 1871. And the first one at Phillipsburg started and it closed in 1887. And they immediately then got this one at Phillipsburg.
You said that this gentleman started a village called Phillipsburg, and then it was not a success because the train didn't go through there. So where was the original Phillipsburg? Because quite evidently it has to move because now there is a train through it. Do you know where that first village was?
She said it wasn't that close to the tracks.
It's
Okay.
probably closer to the
She's
wire road, which is
asking
44.
because,
Okay.
Go ahead.
okay, she was asking where, because the first Phillipsburg, the first village of Phillipsburg wasn't close to the train. Did it move?
After the rails went through, after the railroad came through, Phillipsburg moved to the west side of the tracks where before it was on the east side where the poor farm was.
But Oh, okay,
Did that-
I'm confused then, because that's right there in Phillipsburg. So I don't.
Did
It
that
is
make sense?
I see. Yeah.
Well, no, she said she was confused.
Yeah, but because you said the first Phillipsburg was not close enough to the tracks to be viable. So it was farther
But
to
that
the
was
east.
the core farm was basically was the first.
First Phillipsburg.
Okay, there you go.
And then they
Yeah.
moved the town.
Now they're getting it. Because what you're saying is the first Phillipsburg was the poor farm.
Yes. It wasn't poor farm, but it's where the poor farm.
Where the poor farm
Yes.
was.
Ma'am,
Is
the
her
first-
book, available at the genealogy or?
The first Phillipsburg
It's not, it's wrong
was
copy.
where
I made some photos of
poor
it. I'll share them
farm
with you. It won't be as
became
good a copy,
existent.
but it'll at least
That's
be
where
something.
the poor farm was, but it wasn't there
Interesting,
at the
nonetheless.
same time, the poor farm wasn't there at the same time the railroad came through.
Because the railroad run stops at Rolla in 1865. It doesn't come through
Through there in
Lebanon and
1867.
on out, going towards Springfield till the, is it 1876, something like that?
Did I confuse you?
Well, what I'm confused about is you say that the poor farm or the almshouse was in the original village. Is that true? But it was not close to where the tracks finally went through?
It was farther east is what
So
she
how
said.
far east of the tracks is the original poor farm?
About a half a mile.
About half-
Maybe half a
I
mile.
would think half a mile.
Okay, so you'd have to cross the tracks and go straight,
Yeah, go
and
on.
then turn at some point.
You, as of right now, you would cross the tracks going east on C Highway, turn right, go down in front of the Phillipsburg Christian Church.
Yeah.
And just a little bit down the hill, Barrel Road turns left.
Oh, okay,
And it's down there just a little ways.
okay, thank you, that clarifies where it was.
So there's, I would say about a half a mile
Okay.
from that.
I see a couple of buildings over there on the left here.
Charlene,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if
years
that's
ago,
right there, probably.
we did not do a book on the poor
That's about the
farm
only
to
development.
the
I see.
Historical Society.
I think so, yeah.
We did not publish a book on the poor farm.
Did I? No, I didn't.
But wasn't there some pictures that the Historical Society had of people that stayed there,
What?
that people that actually lived at the poor farm?
There were pictures, and I didn't see them in your book, of the poor farm people standing on their porches or.
Hmm.
I remember seeing them too.
I wrote an article that was published in Briarwood Magazine, a project that the Lebanon paper had here about 1989.
Right.
And I wrote an article then about the poor farm. And I had pictures in
That must
that
be-
article, and I didn't even think about bringing that tonight. I could have.
Okay.
I'll try to bring it to your next
That-
meeting.
In my memory, I knew I had seen pictures.
Yes, and I had researched that at the time.
Okay.
And I wrote about both poor farms. And that's why I knew the location of the one. I never knew the exact location of the Phillipsburg one, but I knew the one up here.
Oh, okay.
And, I just, yeah, the main thing I remember is there was a doctor. Y'all would know his name, the history people. You would know his name, he was one of the big wigs here in
The old town, right?
Lebanon. Huh?
You're talking about an old town, right?
Dr. Carmichael?
That's about the only one.
No, it was Dr. Carmichael. Come up over there. But he would take a buggy once a month and go up here, this one up here.
Ah.
And, one of his daughters wrote about going with her dad or her
Oh, wow.
granddad in the buggy up there. And once a month, he would go up there and do a little something.
Right.
He lived on Harvard.
Okay, interesting.
He had a fun.
And you two would enjoy talking to each other too, a lot.
Yeah.
Say the name, I want to say it started with an M.
I have something I'd like to tell about Charlene. She was talking about the cemeteries and going to, I remember there was one cemetery, well, it was Huff Cemetery up by Eldridge. We were up there reading it and we were talking about this other cemetery. And this way things happened to us. I asked the guy mowing, where was this other cemetery? He goes, oh, you go down here, cross the highway, and you turn left and you turn right. And at that big oak tree, you turn left, and then it veers to the right. Okay, well, we got in the car after we had finished up the cemetery, and we drove down there, and we pulled up in front, and gutsy Charlene, I always rode in the back. She was one that had to get out, and they had some of the biggest, nastiest dogs.
No.
But not once did she get dog bit. So she asked, where was this cemetery? And they go, oh, heck, it's around behind the house. It was briars and trees just everywhere. We went around there, and Charlene went around there, and she said, Betsy, help me over the fence. So I give her a hand and boosted her over the fence. She took off walking, and she disappeared.
Oh, my.
All the graves in that cemetery had sunk. And Charlene was down in the bottom of the grave, and there was a tombstone, and she's just riding as fast as she could. And I had to help her up out of the grave. And there were probably 15 or 20 sunken graves
I
in
could
there.
have used her last October when I had a heart attack.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
So we got her out and then boosted her over the fence, and she picked ticks all the way home, but.
Yeah.
Did you say you was talking about that colored cemetery over there?
Oh, we've been there too.
Dixie really takes care of that.
Yeah.
They did a really good job taking care of that.
They were just starting to care for that one. No, this one was out B Highway, and then you turned past Melvin Hoffman's place and went out that direction, and you turned at a big oak tree, and the tree was dead already. I don't know if it's still standing.
Well, I know some of you want to talk to her. I would just say, come on up there and get close to her, and you can make sure you get all your questions answered. And let's give her a round of applause.
I just want to say that Charlene has written this book. It was still in manuscript form, just a bunch of loose papers, but I did take it to the printers and had it printed. So if anybody would want to get a copy, just let me know. I'll have the printer printed off.
What's that one on?
This is on Brush Creek
He
Station.
doesn't have a copyright, so nobody.
It actually is 4 miles out of town west, and that's where the Civil War soldiers would go to pick up their pensions and their checks. It also had a tomato cannery out there where they would ship tomatoes on the railroad. It was a booming little town, but there's not a whole lot of it left out there.
Where's that in relation to elementary?
This, Eldridge is up north, and this is out west of town.
Far Bennett Spring?
No.
No, Brush Creek.
Old 66 to Normandy,
Yeah.
turn right.
Yeah.
And then when you get down there to Dunklin, turn left.
She also did this book on the Civil War soldiers.
From the county.
And so if you want to look at it, there's a lot of people that served in this county.
Where do we get a copy of that?
I can have you a copy printed off of it too. I did realize this week there's a couple of people that's not in it that she did miss, but there is a lot of them in here. She also wrote the book on the sheriffs. These 3 books, I can have copies printed off if anybody wants any, and I'll just have to have it printed. Yeah.
Gene, one of the most valuable books that Charlene and Betsy kind of did was a book called The Cemeteries Behind What Tree? And it was all the cemeteries in Laclede County with instructions on how to get there.
I'm not getting seen
It's not a basic book, but if you're a cemetery person, $8, that's what you want.
One other thing I noticed, some of you people were talking about the tomato canneries here in the county, how important those were. Well, one of our architectures guy, I think Bubba found it. He found a coin that was for the factory or down there. It was a token for the factory that was down at Stoutland. Is that where that one was? Was that Bubba that found that?
Yes.
Sleeper? Yeah, okay.
But
So,
there were several
several.
Yeah.
canning factories in Laclede County.
yeah, this is the only one we found a token for.
Published
And
in the
I think that was
West
Bubba.
County newspaper last week.
Yeah,
He found
about
3 of them.
17 or 18 of them in the Soviet. He
yes.
has a book that's published that he wrote about kind of about a history of the ball mines.
Yeah.
Have you read that? It's in the Laclede County Library.
I read the book.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's real interesting. And he talks about the Panthers and finding, a secret cave. Yeah. And
Okay, we're
it's real
about
truth
ready
and
to adjourn,
fiction.
but if there's questions you'd like to ask up there, please do that. Make sure you get your name to her and talk to that. And if you want to talk about Wilson's Creek, please come over to this table if you're interested in going.
But they were, I mean, it was amazing how many were in Laclede County. We lived down in Morgan, south of Morgan. Morgan had one, then just north of there in Washington County, Washington Township had one. And then over East Mill had one, which is only about 2.5 miles.
My grandfather's family owned the canning factory. And we always passed down the story until I was probably 15 or 16. I would say, yeah, my folks had a canning factory.
C-A-N-N.
Because that was the way my grandma said it. But it's still, the shell of it's still there.
Yeah.
Route 66.
Yep,
And it's still there off the railroad tracks. Really fascinating.
Oh, you have taken pictures
I
of it.
have.
Okay.
Right when the first week they dismissed us from COVID, I took my daughter and we toured all that and we took pictures and had a good time. My grandmother and her sister Ruth were teachers in those one-room schoolhouses around there.
Yeah.
And we found that. One of the gentlemen was probably 95 or so, and he was a student there. It was neat.
That's wonderful.
It was a good day.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I always enjoy